Coming up on the dirty side of the track this week, Brian gives an update on his snack situation.
I had baked lays of the salt and vinegar variety.
Rob tells us what we already knew,
And I'm just a stupid little kid right now that is way too excited.
and just what is guest Rob's hot take.
You know, hot take here. I do think Oscar, with an extra season under his belt, will probably...
Hey now, welcome to the dirty side of the track, America's leading Formula One podcast. That's Rob, I'm Brian. We have a race preview. For you today.
You know what? One of the reasons why we didn't record last week until Monday was because I was up in Maine all week for a swimming championship for my son, and he was so excited about going to these college championships. When I asked him, like, are you pumped for it? He was like, yeah. He said, Dad, the only way I can describe it is I haven't felt this way since I was a very little kid and it was Christmas Eve. That's how excited he was to go to this swimming championship. That's all I can describe this now of. It's been a long time since I've got that excited on Christmas Eve, but this is like F1 Eve, and we are going to do a race preview, and I can't wait. And as you can probably tell on YouTube from me bouncing around, I'm just a stupid little kid right now that is way too excited.
By the way, if you are on the YouTubes, subscribe. Thank you. Rob, you want to outline the episode?
Yes, we have news and social. Quite a bit of random news this week.
It is random.
It's all over the place, isn't it? I'm going to call it an eclectic mix of news.
Hmm.
We have an entry in Cadillac Corner, which I find very amusing. Brian has been off and done like a gazillion videos for the Video Vault. We can tell. I thought when he took Friday off, it was just to watch Drive to Survive, but obviously he'd done that. He'd injected it into his veins and was still hungry for more. And we've got lots of videos. Then we're going to speak to long-time guest, Formula Fantasy Hub Rob, our Australian friend who has made an appearance on every single season of The Dirty Side, which was an amazing chat. Then we're going to have a little spoiler-inducing section, just giving our thoughts on the Drive to Survive season. And then we'll finish off this little thing called an Australian Grand Prix preview.
Yes. Yes, so excited.
Right. Let's jump into the news then. Right. First up. Okay. F1 are scrapping the mandatory two-stop rule for Monaco this year.
Thank God.
We need the cheer thing there. You should have the little soundboard ready. Yeah. You got it?
This one? I mean, thank God, but what took them so long to do this? I mean, it was such a farce last year. They could have done it that night.
Okay, we're not doing this again next year, guys. Yeah. I mean, do you worry that they'll have something up their sleeve that's just as bad that we haven't had announced yet?
Yes, you're going to have to run you have 4 tires. Each one has to be a different compound.
Yeah.
We'll let you figure out where the intermediate goes.
I'd like to see the... no, how did they do... something with the batteries. I was trying to come up with something where they have to kind of get out and plug their battery in. Like they're going to turn off harvesting. The only way you can do it is there'll be little power outlets everywhere, and you got to pull over and decide when you're going to recharge. But hopefully they won't do anything stupid.
I would still prefer the Le Mans style start, but that's all right.
Now, going from the ridiculous to big news, which I think might also be a nothing burger, and I'd love your opinion here, Brian. So it was announced, we're recording on Saturday, I think it was actually announced today. The FIA has said it's going to change the way the compression ratio is measured from June the 1st onwards, with a further revision in the 2027 season. So this is that whole Mercedes, ambient temperature, secret sauce, run it hot, it goes faster shenanigans. Statements come out and said the rule change has been unanimously approved by all of the power unit manufacturers. They are going to, from 1st of June, as well as measure the compression ratio at ambient temperature, they will also measure it at 130 degrees. I have questions on this, Brian, but before I ask you these questions, what's your first impression on this news?
Well, first of all, I'm assuming that Az is confused by 130 Celsius. Fahrenheit is one freezing, is one boiling. He's still not good with the temperatures. He's like Paul with times. Second of all, I'm fairly certain we saw news, it was relatively quiet, where Mercedes said they passed like a 100 Celsius test. And the way their chambers things worked, which created some of this, they said they were fine with a hot test. So I'm sort of assuming they're going to be able to pass this one as well. But that's my guess.
Well, so this is where I'm going, right? I have no idea at what temperature an engine runs to in a Formula One car, I will be honest. my gut tells me that it's north of 130 degrees. So have Mercedes, because it's unanimous, right? If you were sitting on an advantage that you thought was going to give you maybe a title-winning car this year, and it was complicit with the rules, and you got it checked out by the FIA ahead of time, would you have just rolled over and gone, oh yeah, fine, just nerf us mid-season and let everyone catch up on the 1st of June? Or if you know that your compression ratio, your magic material, doesn't start doing the extra compression till, say, 140, 150, and they go, we're going to do a new test at 130, you're going to go, yeah, go on then. Have at it.
I mean, I think so. And just again, we should probably know. We should have figured out what the temperature that an F1 engine runs at. I don't know, but I'll do this math for us. 130 Celsius is 266 Fahrenheit. In my 14-year-old Mercedes, the oil temperature is a very important measure to watch, because sometimes these engines go bang, and if they do, you're going to know based on the oil temperature. I watch it. That's all that's on the middle of my thing. I don't do the temperature of anything else, the fluids. I don't do I don't have a speedometer up. I just have the oil temp. And I can tell you that I watch it routinely, and when it's really hot in the summer and I'm beating on the car, I get up to about 235. That's a road car that has an 8,500 RPM cap. That's 30 degrees away. So you have to believe an F1 engine runs a lot hotter than that, right?
Yeah, so I'm just kind of thinking, so then if you're Mercedes, you're okay with introduce this new test, because that's not my secret temperature. We hit 145 and thermal dynamics kicks in and we get our extra compression ratio. So exactly. I don't know. It feels like it had to be one that was maybe compromised, because we discussed you can't just go and change the engine rules on the eve of the season and throw 4 of the teams in the gutter because they're screwed with the cost cap.
There'll be additional revisions in 27. That feels like, well, now we're going to go to maximum temp or something.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah. But we could be wrong. We probably are. Anyhow, the thing we're not wrong about is how cool our fantasy league is. Join it. And there's easy ways to find it. The best is going to www.dirtysideofthetrack.com. It's right there on the homepage. There's a link to it. We give away prizes. We give out shout-outs, and we have amazing content creators and luminaries of fantasy in our league. Join us. It'll be a good time.
Tell your friends and get them to join as well, because it's always good to try and beat your friends.
Yes.
Just for bragging rights, and you can just really hold it over them, like for 4.5 years of a podcast, maybe that person has never beaten the other one. But anyway,
I've never mentioned that at all.
Okay, Honda made a statement about their poor performance in pre-season. It's not a statement that gives me hope, but maybe at least part of a problem is finding out where the problem is. In order to solve it, you need to know what it is. They've come out and said, during the pre-season tests, we noticed some abnormal vibrations. So not good vibrations like the Beach Boys sang about, but abnormal vibrations. We think the main cause of the problem was that these abnormal vibrations caused damage to the battery system. In response to this, we are investigating, and we'll be taking measures. Okay. So the car's shaking.
Right.
It's like Jacques Villeneuve's battery that he told us about. It's hanging on by a thread.
Was about to say the same.
I guess that's good news for Honda, because they've identified something, but it almost sounds like, when people throw other people under the bus? Oh, well, we're taking a look at it. It's not our engine. It's your chassis. It's Adrian Newey. It's rattling too much, and it's ruining the battery. It's your problem.
Well, 2 parts. First of all, in case anyone wasn't aware, you should listen to the Jack episode.
This is Jacques Villeneuve, and you're listening to The Dirty Side of the Track.
Second of all, if you're... how does the battery not work because of the vibration? Are the leads not attached? Did they just, we're just going to lay these on and hope they stay on there, and we're not going to screw them down or anything? What? Come on.
They only tested the battery connections under ambient connections and not abnormal vibrations.
130 F/C/Kelvin. We don't know what scale. I don't know. We'll find out. They got a lot of problems over there. That's just one. Unrelated to Honda is Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri has a mental health coach, Emma Murray, and she was asked a little bit about his routine and his mindset, especially after Baku 2025, which, if we remember, was the beginning when the wheels came off.
Yeah.
But she talks a little bit about that, but she also talks about how he changed his morning routine in 2025. Instead of waking up and laying in bed and bed rotting and doom scrolling, as the youths would say, playing on your phone, as the oldies would say, he started journaling and doing meditation. And he was a step further than he was in 2024. So if that helped, then more power to him. And whatever he needs to do, we didn't really talk too much about this, but he has taken a step forward every year in terms of his talent, in terms of his sort of composure. He's always had good composure, but you get the point. Like, he's improved everything every year. If he can find what kind of took him down in the middle of 25, man, maybe he's going to be powerful in 26. Because he's proven it year over year over year, better every year. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, first it was his time management. He sorted that out. This year it will be something he'll just need to work out. What caused me to not just take it as easy? It was easy for him in the first part of the year. It was almost as if once the pressure got and it became real that, I'm in the hunt for a championship here, something happened and none of us know what. And if he can sort that out, I'm with you. I think if he can fix it, then he'll be a force to be reckoned with this year.
Yeah, we may be more positive on Oscar than our guest, but you'll have to wait and listen to that. Friend of the show, Vincenzo Landino, came out with the F1 earnings, although I guess F1 came out with them, Liberty Media. Vincenzo reported on it. F1 posted $3.9 billion in revenue for 2025. That's up 14%. 14% year-over-year growth is very good for any company or organization. That's actually insane. If you plotted double-digit growth, your board would be like, take it easy. And then it happened. Operating income up 28%. Live viewership up 24%. Fantastic. Fan attendance, 6.75 million fans attended. You're looking at two of them. Vegas sold out and saw 1.8 billion social impressions, which I could not give a rip about. And in 26, we're going to have Cadillac, Audi, Honda's coming back, and Ford, Red Bull powertrains on the grid.
He does care about your social impressions of liking and subscribing the Dirty Side, though. So Brian does care about your social impressions.
Correct. I don't care
just
about
needed to sort that one out.
Your hashtags, though, about Vegas. And then my last news of the week is a stat that I found. Again, I'm saving some of the SAP stats for when we actually get into races, the jingles. But this was a great one on Twitter from @F1GuyDan. There were 7 races that were won from outside the top 5 during the ground effect era, 22 to 25. There were 7 that were won from outside the top 5. Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen. How cool is that? I mean, that's amazing. And some of them he started really far back. Obviously, Brazil in 24, P17. Was at Belgium 22, P14. Somewhere what appears to be Italy in 22, P10. I don't know all of the rest of these, but P9, P7, P6, P6. That's amazing.
That is. That really is. Although I have no comparison because I don't know how many were won from outside the top 10 under the turbo hybrid era, 2014 to 2022. Was it 7 and they were all Lewis, or was it none? Either way, this is an amazing stat. So,
totally.
Yeah.
Any other news for you, sir?
No, open up that vault door.
I had to get my little fingers in there quick as I pointed because you always put the vault.
It did. It just opened just then.
It just opened now. All right. So first off, my first draft lineups on the Formula Fantasy Hub channel, 20 minutes. Rob's guidance is needed now more than ever. It's a great video. Oh, and he so happens to be the guest this week.
That name sounds familiar.
So check him out in a few minutes' time here on this here channel, but also obviously go over to Rob's channel. It's great. Crofty explains why there might be chaos, capital letters, from the start as the new era of F1 begins, ! Popcorn bucket, on the Sky Sports F1 channel, 10 minutes. I actually enjoyed this. So, there were a couple of these that I'll highlight, but in reality, I thought Crofty did a pretty good job talking about what to expect. Ollie Behrman calls his famous friends, will they be sitting or standing? BBC Radio 1, 14 minutes. I really enjoyed this. I enjoy a lot of the BBC Radio 1 gags that they have when they have guests on and do things. They call people and they ask, are you sitting or standing? And Ollie called some famous people. But is there anyone not on the Ollie train at this point? At least liking him? Am I misreading the room? It feels as though he's young. He's got a good personality. He's driving for an up-and-coming team. is there anyone who hates Ollie? You don't have to love him. You don't have to be an Ollie fan. But is there anyone who really dislikes Ollie Behrman at this point?
I don't think so. No, I haven't met one yet.
I couldn't figure out why. Like, I was watching this, I'm like, there's no reason to not like this guy. You may not like him, but to dislike him, I can't figure that. I happen to like him. I enjoyed it. Who is Hannah Schmitz? Get to know our team on the Oracle Red Bull Racing channel, 4 minutes. It's very short, but it is fascinating to kind of get her perspective. And I enjoyed like the team aspects of it and what she does on a race weekend and the role they play. And of course, I mean, go back to Qatar last year when McLaren hosed the strategy on the 25 tire lap thing and they did not box and everyone else did. There was a lot of, this is why Hannah's awesome. She is awesome. You should check that out. Get out of the way. Driving Ix with Oscar Piastri on the McLaren channel. 5 minutes. I wanted to like this. I really did. I like Oscar. I like stuff like this. This was terrible. They ask him questions, and it's basically, is this a green flag in something they do, or a red flag in what they do? And they gave him all these flags, and he's just holding the flags the whole time. He's got yellows, 2 yellows. He's got a blue. I mean, he's got 40 flags. They ask him a question, and the questions are so benign. Someone passes you in traffic, and they're drinking coffee. And he's like,
really?
And he plays with the flags for me. He goes, yellow, you should have 2 hands on the wheel. Come on, it was so... I'm making that up, but that's basically what it was. It was so bad. Oh, man.
Next.
So bad. And then the one to watch that stole the show, Carlos Sainz finally meets the creator of Sparkles on the Atlassian Williams F1 channel. 8 minutes. Internet loved it. I loved it. It was great. If you haven't watched it, watch it. This young girl is the one who created Sparkles, the unicorn or whatever it was, drew it and went on his logo, it went on his helmet on the back, and he got a podium. She gets the royal treatment at Williams as she deserves because her drawing was magical for Carlos, and loved it. This was cute and great.
Awesome.
Anything for you?
Let's shut the vault and get ready to fire up Paddy.
From one sound effect to another, it's time to open Cadillac Corner.
It's Cadillac Corner.
Join, walk over to, stand on.
It's Cadillac Corner. It's Cadillac Corner.
What is the adjective there? Slanging our goods in the corner? What are we doing on the corner?
I liked all of them, but I mean, you found this one, so I'll let you introduce it, but I do find it humorous.
All right. So Cadillac named their chassis, as everybody does. And by the way, quick aside, like Red Bull is like 2 numbers behind. Like they had the RB19 in 23. They're 4 numbers behind. It drives me nuts. Just use the year number in the thing. Like, just come on. And don't count how many times you've done it. I don't need the Ferrari SF 9002. Just put the friggin' year at the end if you're going to do a number. And Cadillac complied. Thank you. They have the MAC 26, the Mario Andretti Cadillac 26, a name rooted in a world champion's legacy, a chassis built for the future. Fine, it's Mac 26. There is, unfortunately, a gun in America called a Mac 10, so like someone will notice that's probably a little problematic. But anyway, Mac 26, Rob?
I just found it humorous because there was all that furore when Mario Andretti was trying to come into F1. It seems like nobody liked him and was trying to keep him out of F1. So
it was Michael more than him.
Well, the whole Andretti, they just didn't want him in. They didn't want the Andretti name in Formula One, so they went, okay, well, it's Cadillac as part of GM. We know Andretti's associated with it, but there's no naming around Andretti in there. Okay, it's fine. In you come. Pay your money, and you come. What are you calling the chassis? And now you know that it'll get referenced multiple times on TV.
The Mario Andretti Cadillac 26.
I'm so childish, but I just like the fact that they put the Andretti name in the chassis.
It is more Michael, is my understanding of the whole thing. Because they named the last turn at Coda unofficially the Mario Andretti Corner.
There was all of that kind of anti-Andretti stuff flying around when these guys tried to come in the first time. Yeah, you're right. It was probably Michael. But either way, I'm a child, and I found it funny.
I love it. Well, speaking of things that are great and love, let's listen to me introduce our guest.
Box.
It is an absolute pleasure to have Formula Fantasy Hub Rob with us. Rob is an OG member of the Dirty Side, and we have been a big fan of Rob's, watching his success take off over the last handful of years. He's the lead F1 fantasy writer at Formula One, and he's a YouTube GOAT. Rob, welcome back, man.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Rob. It's, as we were just saying, 4th year running to come onto the show. So it's an absolute honor to obviously talk to you about F1 and F1 fantasy, because it's going to be another big season ahead, I'm sure.
It definitely will be. It definitely will be. And the honor is ours, buddy. So what have you noticed so far in 26 before we get to the fantasy game? As we were kind of chatting before, I'm excited because of some of the unknowns, some of the curiosities of who will be good and who won't. What are you excited for in 26 on track?
I think similarly, honestly, I don't want to sound like beating a dead horse, because it does seem like every pundit has a similar opinion from what has come out of preseason, but it's a huge change in the regulations. I think we'll see a huge shakeup in the kind of team order in terms of who's good in the kind of front running pack, who's good in the midfield, who brings up the rear. And there's already been a few big movers in preseason from what we've seen, some surprise packages. And I think, just as equally, those guys that maybe like Aston Martin, for example, have really fallen down the order and clearly have a lot of ground to make up. So I think it's going to be a huge season of change and a lot of back and forth. I think we'll see teams that start out strong and maybe regress a little bit, and those that need, 6 to 8 races to really build up. And I think that change in the pecking order week to week is going to make it such an interesting 2026.
Yeah, I think we're going to see. My gut tells me this is be one of the biggest changes we've seen on track for a long time, because the ground effect here, like 2022 came in, and I don't know, the top teams stayed the top teams, and not a lot really changed. Okay, Newey nailed it, but other than that, I don't know, it was different, but kind of more of the same. This one, and maybe this will turn into a nothing burger when we watch the race next weekend, but this one just feels like it's got the opportunity that anybody could strike, especially just during the first few weeks. We could see some really random stuff going on, and maybe some chaos as people don't work out how to charge batteries properly.
Yeah, I think interestingly as well, because it's so technical, drivers like Max Verstappen, you're hearing about him finding how new ways to steer the car or approach corners or how to manage the battery. And I think it's going to reward some of those more technically proficient drivers. Maybe it will work in favor of perhaps even those younger drivers, because just as much as the experienced guys have been around for so long, they also haven't driven a car like this before. So we may well see drivers like Gabriel Bortoleto or Isaac Hadjar really surprise us, and maybe those guys that are reliable, experienced heads take longer to actually get up to speed. I guess that's all very much speculation, but it's interesting to me all the same.
If you take the speculation piece to another level, are there any things you hope happen? Kind of like the heart over my head, but I'm hoping that this particular team or driver really shows out strong to begin the year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could go down so many routes with that question. For me, I might go a little left of field here and talk about Pierre Gasly for a second, because I think Alpine are, we know that they've really struggled the last year or two, and they now have, I think that's the understatement of the century, actually.
Yeah, last year, not so good.
But I think, now that they've got that Mercedes engine and there's a lot more optimism, they look very competitive in terms of the midfield outfits in preseason testing. Gasly, even though the car was an absolute dog for most of last year, still outperformed it, especially in qualifying at various points in the second half of 2025. And I think now that the car looks much more reliable, competitive, we're going to see him, in the points, I would like to think, week to week. And, and I really do hope that the Mercedes PU rewards those midfield teams in Williams and Alpine, especially because I would love to see them mix it with the big boys up the front and really give those front running guys a run for their money. And Gasly, we know when he does have a decent car, and you kind of have to go back to AlphaTauri a few years ago now, that he was in the mix for the top 5, top 6, every other week. And I'd love to see that again for him, because I think he's a very underrated driver. He's just not been able to work with the tools he's been given these last couple of seasons.
I love that. So we were with the midfield pod a while ago, and I announced Pierre as my favorite midfield driver. So I'm hearing you. And Rob and I last week both thought Haas and Alpine may be the best of the rest. We were kind of trying to figure out who's going to finish fifth, at least in the beginning in terms of team wise. So hear ya. I hope that's true. Question for you, as an Aussie, Oscar Piastri. Is he like a 9-time world champion starting this year? Like, what's your Oscar Piastri level of excitement?
Yeah, I think trying to temper expectations a little bit, just because of obviously the end he had to his 2025 campaign. I do, Oscar as an Aussie, he's my favorite driver, as I'm sure you guys would expect, and I do think he's in for a good year. It from preseason testing doesn't seem like McLaren are the top dogs anymore. I think they're going to have a much harder time to get those race wins compared to last year. But I do expect Oscar's maybe been, and I think this is a product of the fact his teammates just won a world champion, probably been a little undersold. I think he'll have a great year. I think he'll be in the mix for victories, every so often. I think he'll be a contender for podiums. And, hot take here. I do think Oscar, with an extra season under his belt, will probably outscore Lando Norris. I think a lot of people are probably more geared towards Lando just because he has had a really good end to his 2025 season. But you take away that capitulation from Oscar for the last 10 or so races. I know that's a relatively large sample size in the course of the
half
season.
The season, yeah.
Yes, I'm well aware of that. But from what we saw from Oscar for the first 12, 14 races, he was the man to beat. And I just don't see that kind of inconsistency blight his season this time around. So I have every expectation that he is definitely within a very good chance of finishing top 5 in the drivers, which is obviously a step down from last season, but all the same, the car seems to be a little inferior compared to the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari.
I think you're throwing in the towel a little early there based on testing, which we know counts for nothing.
Yeah.
McLaren could easily have been, anybody could easily have been sandbagging. We've never historically seen anyone put any decent pace down in testing. So,
yeah.
I hear what
Rob
you
just
say.
doesn't want to get too excited too early, is what he's saying. He's being a tempered approach to Oscar's success.
No.
I'd love to say.
Rob.
Not you, Vale.
I'd love to say Oscar is a world champion this season, but I talked about Alpine just before and that they look best of the rest, and I don't think McLaren were top of the front runners. I think at best they're a second, at worst they're fourth, and yes, they have the Mercedes power unit, but I'd want to see something pretty significant from Oscar and Lando in free practice in Australia to change my thought process right now.
One more question for you before we hit the fantasy. Who gets the first point? Cadillac or Aston Martin?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I just thought of it. I'm like, I gotta ask Rob his thoughts. Or okay. Nobody is the answer. They go pointless the whole season, which I don't think is going to happen.
The thing is, I think Aston Martin have a higher probability of securing points at some point this season. But when that happens, I have no idea. You could easily foresee that happening not until after the summer break, the way the car looks. Like, they may not even have a car in Australia. I think that's unlikely. But from the way things were looking in Bahrain, that car was dreadful.
Yeah.
And
I'm still clinging to this is going to go down in history as the world's greatest sandbagging, holding back a rocket ship from Newey. And as they storm to a 1-2 in Australia, they will just Newey will just swivel around on his chair like Dr. Evil.
Don't get him started, because then he'll tell you that I accidentally predicted a Lance Stroll championship. So, Rob, back to you. Who do you think gets the first point, Caddy or Aston?
I've got to give it to Aston. I know they've been the worst team in terms of number of laps and consistency in the preseason, but realistically, they do have Adrian Newey. They do have that factory. They do have that wind tunnel, and there's bound to be a change of fortunes at some point. It may take 8 to 10 races, but I still think there's a higher likelihood of them scoring points in the next dozen or so tracks than Cadillac do it all. I think Cadillac will be the slowest car on the grid, and you're looking at the last 5 new teams to enter Formula One. 3 out of the 5, someone correct me on this, but 3 out of the 5 teams new to the grid didn't score a point in their first season or scored less than 3 points in their first season. Something really, really low. So, Cadillac have really got a lot of work to do to break into the top 10.
Yeah, and Paul was telling us when he came on, it was like just not being 21st and 22nd is the aim. It's not going for points. That's just not realistic in this modern era of F1 that you can just waltz in with a brand new car and suddenly be right up there expecting points. If they get one of those kind of races that we saw get the double Alpine podium where, rain, whatever it is, something that comes out of left field, I'm sure if they've got a reliable car that sees the checkered flag all the time, who knows, they could grab something. But no, I think as much as all the kind of people would love to see Cadillac, Valtteri and Checo come in and get something. I think Paul's been around the block long enough to kind of know that, just not finishing the last 2 every single race would be a bonus.
I'll win.
And just learn and out. I think Checo's phrase that we were on about last week was just try to outdevelop some people this year. So just as you bring upgrades to the car, just see that you're inching forward and maybe going forward at a greater rate of knots than everyone else. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm with you. I think Aston will pull something out the fire at some point, and hopefully they got to, right?
Like, do they in terms of their ceiling this season though? Do they suddenly turn the car around to a point where they're top 5 race to race, or is that really unrealistic from what we've seen?
I think they're so far
Brian
behind.
Called it.
Go ahead, Rob.
I would say you called it last week, and I agree with you that they've got the biggest potential swing of performance just because they're coming in so low.
I mean, yeah, it can't get worse, so it has to get better. But they're 4 or 5, however many months behind everybody else. By the time they close some of those deficiencies and some of those gaps, the season will be in the ending phases, and they'll be already developing the 27 car. So I just don't see them getting a home run out of this year's car. But they got to learn. They got to figure out what went wrong. They got to build on a foundation for 27. So I think I agree with both of you. I think it's going to be Aston. I think they won't be as embarrassing at some point soon. Just maybe not yet.
So to beautifully segue into our next topic and the main reason that we like to have you on, Rob, can you just talk me through the thought process and just quite what exactly the people that create F1 Fantasy were smoking when they valued the Aston Martin assets?
I think, look, obviously it's absurd how high priced, Alonso, Stroll, and the constructor are. But to try and put, myself in the developer's shoes, I am going to assume they're basing it off the fact that they will turn their fortunes around at some point over the next kind of 6 to 8 races. And then their price would perhaps be more representative of their performance. But of course, right now, that kind of price range is just untenable for anyone. And even if they were priced at 4 million, I still don't think I'd be looking at them. So it's obviously a bit of a funny one, but I have nothing wrong with how they've priced Aston Martin personally, just because I don't think they're not really on anyone's radar now or for the foreseeable.
So one of the changes this year is they've lowered the floor from what was it? What was the old floor? Now it's 3 million. What was it?
It was 4.5, and it's now 3 million. Yeah.
So we don't know yet quite if they're going to keep to the same algorithm as last year, but given where they are right now, a lot of people are predicting, well, they'll just tank and they'll maybe be the first assets to hit 3 million, and then maybe they become worthwhile later on in the season, which almost basically, I think, I'd love your expert opinion here, rules them out of anybody's selection right now, and nobody even goes near them, which kind of takes like 3 assets straight out of the game straight away. It's like Cadillac didn't join the grid. We've just got to go back to 10 constructors.
I think the hard thing is with F1 Fantasy this season is that there are a lot of assets that are priced at a point where perhaps they are expecting, the new regulations or a new engine at the back of that car to push them forward, whether it's now or in 10 races time. We're just not sure. But you got to look at, Williams as well. They're priced at 11, 12 million. Pierre Gasly's priced at 12 million. I think there's clear optimism or expectation that at some point those price tags, even if they do come down a little bit, are probably more representative of the value of that asset than perhaps what preseason indicates. So, the way the game and the way the team lineups are kind of shifting right now before we get to the first deadline in Australia is that a lot of people are trying to squeeze in some of those more expensive assets and then just fill out the rest of their team with those kind of cheaper ones because of, kind of unsure uncertainty around who will be good and who won't be.
So we kind of jumped past some of the rules. We'll come back to that in a second. I'm putting a pin in that. You had an amazing video, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where you went through some team options on your YouTube, and you called one of them number 1, Template Merchant, and you went heavy on Haas and Ferrari. And I get it. Like, I look at Haas, we just talked about it. We all kind of said, well, at least we did. You said Alpine, but we added Haas into that potential best of the rest. Yet their assets are way cheaper than everybody else in terms of a $7.5 million constructor and drivers sitting way down there at about $7.5 million each as well. The question to you is this. A, I'd love your thoughts on who's underpriced, and B, with so many unknowns to the season, is that our best bet, is to find people the first week or so that just look underpriced and just hope for the best?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, to answer the first part of your question, I think Haas, all 3 assets, so Behrman, Ocon, and the Haas constructor, which are, 7.4, 7.3 million, all very underpriced. Like you said before, Brian, your Haas were, in most people's opinion, somewhere between 5th and 6th in preseason, and I think that's a fair reflection of kind of what I'd expect them to continue that level of performance moving into Australia. But you look at the pricing list, like they're priced below Aston Martin, they're priced below Williams. Both drivers are below Pierre Gasly as well. So even though they might look 5th on the road, they're 6th, 7th, 8th in the fantasy pricing scale. So I think it's a clear indication to me that they are the most undervalued. Again, surprised the developers put them that low, but I think there's a lot of upside with them. The last 2 seasons, Haas have been the best team for overtakes, the best team for positions to gain on the grid, and you're looking at both drivers that are starting the season kind of similarly to where they started 2025 at. So I'd fully expect to see at least 1 or 2 of them in most people's team to start the year, if not even 3. Like, the template is emerging very quickly, and a lot of people have the triple up on Haas and the double up on Leclerc and Ferrari because of the way they've been priced. So that's the direction I think the game is going for a lot of people early doors.
No, I agree. I've the first time in a while I've done 2 teams just to kind of play, just to see how the thing goes on, because what I've decided to do is have one team where I'm going to see how well I can get stacked in drivers, and the other one to see how well I can get stacked in constructors, just to give me some interest, really, to see the difference between how over the course of a season are you better off trying to get the better constructors or the better drivers. Now, so although I'm waiting for Formula One to actually admit this name, because I don't think there's anything wrong with this, but it's got the little yellow badge of doom on it at the moment. They're looking into it. So Another One Bites the Russ is under investigation at the moment. I thought that was a great play on the Queen song, but, that might not survive. The second team, the Guns N' Roses song, Sweet Child O' Signs, that one is okay. That didn't get flagged. But you're absolutely right. Kind of, on the one way you kind of stack in the constructors, then has to just seem an obvious one, because it's weird. They've seemed to have picked some bits of preseason rumor mill that they'll lean into. So Mercedes are the top constructor. Like, okay, you've gone for Mercedes because you're buying into their preseason, but Ferrari and Haas, you're going to ignore all of that and go, oh, well, it's a Ferrari engine, it's bound to go boom. It's just, I'd love your view on how they've decided which parts, because Mercedes up top, and I think George is right behind Max, isn't he, in terms of the drivers?
See, I wish I could tell you and anyone listening how the minds of the developers work, because that has been my biggest bugbear for the last 5 years of creating content for this game. Without knowing, I would actually argue that from how the assets have been priced across the board, as much as I'd like to believe they've taken into account preseason testing, I'm almost of the view that they've just gone off hype before we arrived in Barcelona and looked at, okay, Mercedes engine is going to be excellent, Ferrari engine is not going to be excellent. And you look at George, Kimi, fairly priced. The McLaren's right behind George Russell, again, fairly priced. And then the midfield is kind of where it speaks to me that like you've got Gasly at 12 million, the Williams at 11.5, and then Aston Martin again with that kind of newy optimism ahead of the Haas guys who have objectively been the best value assets for the last 3 years in the game, but given no real thought to the Ferrari power unit, which obviously powers three teams. Now, Cadillac obviously at the back, that makes perfect sense, but Haas are 2 million below where I thought they'd be, and Ferrari are pretty similarly below where I thought they'd be. So I want to believe they're looking at preseason because the game launched after the second Bahrain test, but the pricing scale doesn't really indicate that at all. So the mind boggles, but I guess we've got to make do with what we have. And so far, again, I think there's a number of different teams kind of coming out of that based on pricing alone.
I just did the homework early and then didn't realize the teacher gave a different version of the homework before they handed it out. And I solved the right problem.
Yeah.
So in terms of the game itself, the platform and the rule changes, there were a handful of things. Vale already nailed the floor lowering, but there were a couple other big things that kind of came up. One was, having all three of the teams being eligible for prizes in the global league. And then the sprint DNFs being less harsh than the race DNFs. I believe that changed. And then the one I don't understand is the transfer allowance. So, and I mean, literally, I don't understand it. So, like,
I don't get this either. So I'm hoping Rob can enlighten us because I don't know what they're trying to have fixed because I don't know there was anything wrong with it before. So
like, help us with those and anything I might have missed.
Okay, so why don't we start with the easy changes that they've made, and then we can talk about the transfer one because that's the most convoluted, unexplainable change to the rules this season that I've seen. So yes, we talked about the price floor before. Obviously, that's come down from 4.5 to 3 million. The scoring updates to the DNF in the sprint race has been reduced from a -20 to a -10. Problematically, however, you can still lose positions down to 20 spots on the grid. So theoretically, if your driver, and this is, I'm not sure how they got to this point and didn't think about this logically. If your driver started first and then spun out and went all the way down to 22nd, you'd get a -21. So you're better off having your driver retire from the sprint than they are to finish the race on the road. Because it's detrimental to obviously have a -21 more to your score than a -10 retirement.
You couldn't get both, though, right? Like, you couldn't spin out in a sprint, have everyone pass you, and then do one lap and retire and get a -31?
No. You just get a -10 if you retired after the first lap.
Just checking.
That doesn't make sense in terms of like why they haven't capped positions lost at a -10 as well. But anyway, we have to, again, make do with the beautiful game that's been given to us. And then the transfers. So I think the change itself is a good one, but the way it was worded on the website was so confusing. I had a live stream when the game went live, and it took me about 3 or 4 reads through this rule change to actually make sense of what it was. So on the website, it reads, "From this season, we will only look at the total amount your team changes between Grand Prix when calculating your transfer allowance, not each transfer separately." To me, that makes absolutely no sense and is so poorly worded.
Thank you. Us too. We still don't understand it.
But as far as I understand it, what it means is, let's say you have, I think giving an example is probably the best way of explaining this change. So let's say you have Oscar Piastri in your team, right? And you have him when your team unlocks after Australia. Between Australia and the China deadline, you could change from Oscar Piastri to Charles Leclerc to Kimi Antonelli, and then right before the deadline, go all the way back to Oscar Piastri. If you did that change for just that particular driver, there would be no transfer recorded because it's no net change to your team as a result of that. However, if you went from just Oscar Piastri to Charles Leclerc and Charles Leclerc was in your team at the deadline, that would obviously count as a transfer.
So it's when it locks. They're giving you like interim locks, if you will, and you're not paying for the transfers until the locks, the quality
Correct.
comes in your team locks. Because that is annoying, because there were times when I would want to go throw everyone overboard because my team was so bad last year, and I would literally just drop everyone, and then I had to stop and go, "Don't do this, Brian, because you're going to use all transfers just to fire them all." So now I can put them all back before the thing locks, hypothetically, and I would get a 0. So I'm Flavio Briatore. That's my management style this year. I'm going to fire everyone after each race.
Okay, I'm with you because the way it was worded made it sound, and I was really trying to work out how the maths would even work here. Was that if I did say three transfers individually, one at a time, versus one of them all together, they'd only look at the value of the difference between all the transfers, and I'm like, but it's the same amount of money. It can't come out at a different answer. What problem are they solving? But okay, it's not really about the money. It is I just do a comparison of when the team unlocked versus when it finally locks, and whatever you did in between, it all comes out in the wash, and they just work out the difference between what your final team is when it actually locks.
Yes, I believe so. But again, I've never seen such a poorly worded rule change in my entire life. I think without, again, knowing how their minds work, it might have been to accommodate time zones because we do have a lot of people going to bed at different times when qualifying starts or beforehand. And obviously, you don't get to see free practice sometimes. And without that third session of data, sometimes your decision making can be skewed a little bit. So I'd assume if people are, waking up 5 minutes before qualifying or not really sure what happened and they have a last minute change of heart, then obviously it doesn't disadvantage those people that are on the other side of the world.
Also, if you've been late to watch, Rob's video, and you see at 5 minutes before quali and Formula Fantasy Hub, Rob tells you to put a team in and you make a change, now you're not penalized if you'd had one in before. So I like that. It gets everyone a chance to hear from Rob in advance.
It's a positive change, just a poorly worded one.
Now, I've got to get this one out of the way because everyone knows this is my soapbox issue with the whole game. But do we think we are still playing fantasy stock market with caring more about what happened in the last three races rather than picking a team that we think will be good this week?
Unfortunately, somewhat, yes. I would have loved to have seen the trailing average be kind of staggered in terms of the most recent race has the biggest effect on future price changes rather than an equal weighting for all three. But I think there'll be somewhat of a similar strategy this season, at least early on. However, I think the fact that it is so fluid and, as I said before, performance changes could occur week to week by different teams. We may end up somewhat ditching the budget building approach and going for more of a balanced points versus budget this time around. At least that's kind of my early read because I think with the sprint in China, the following race, you don't want to put all of your eggs into a midfield basket because I do worry that, a team like VCARB or Haas or Alpine over the course of a sprint race and a Grand Prix may not actually be able to stack up quite like having two premium constructors like Red Bull and Ferrari or Mercedes and Ferrari. So again, lots of considerations, but I don't think it's as clear cut as just playing the stock market and buying low, selling high as it might have been a year or two prior.
Oh, I'm all aboard that then. I love that little bit of silver lining. I'm all in on that. And do we still have driver of the day 10 points?
Yes.
Yes. Fastest lap as well, which the mind boggles at because it's not a point scoring category in the championship. Yeah. So I don't know again how their wonderful minds work, but I do think again we'll see a lot of people have their point scoring skewed by DNF's one side of the coin and then fastest lap and driver of the day on the other side of the coin.
So little question for you on that one. Do you anticipate, because of the new regs, because of the new cars and the battery and all this kind of stuff, my gut is telling me this is going to be one of the highest DNF or at least crashes and people falling down the order even if they recover and keep going. So I honestly think this could really throw the cat amongst the pigeons in both the game and the real on-track action as well. So are you thinking there's going to be a big slice of minus 20s all over the place?
Yeah, that first minus 20 DNF is going to hit so good, Rob. I cannot wait. I do think that we will see a much higher proportion of retirements, at least in the first half of the season, just with teams kind of figuring out the engines and the car performance and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think I'm a little desensitized to retirements at this point in fantasy, but it feels like there's going to be quite a few this season, and maybe pulling the trigger on an early no negative or an autopilot might just alleviate some of that pain.
Yeah.
Well, because as I was kind of pulling the team together, like the obvious first strategy was like, we'll load into Valtteri and Checo just because obviously we've had Valtteri and we're biased, but also they're so cheap that allows me to spend the money everywhere else. But then you're thinking, brand new team, brand new regs. I am so suspicious that so many cars are going to have battery problems where they end up, even though the engine's still running, power recovery is not working, so just box, retire the car. And it's difficult to predict who it's going to be, but you're kind of thinking, oh, do I load it on Cadillac? Because are they, and definitely Aston Martin's swerve off with all the problems they had with their energy, the battery in pre-season. You're like, I want to stay away from anybody who I think hasn't nailed this battery piece because that's just got -20 written all over it.
Yeah, I think for me, the more I consider it, the more I'm willing to maybe diversify my risk in the midfield with those drivers a little more. I think obviously the three Haas assets in a team of, Ocon, Behrman, and the constructor value-wise looks exceptionally appealing. But, if one of those guys, and look, Ferrari objectively have looked relatively reliable in preseason, but even if one of those guys retires, whether it's mechanical or a driver error, that's a very harsh -40 to your team to start the year off. So the more I think about it, the more I'm willing to maybe hedge my bets at least a little while early doors, and then kind of reposition once I've got a much better read of reliability and driver performance.
Don't let Rob talk you into something. He doesn't know what he's talking about in fantasy.
Not at all.
But back to the point on the history and the amount of weighting on recent races and pricing. Andy Tales, who is a fantasy player, he was on the pod with us here on our Discord episode, and he let it slip that he was interviewed or part of a survey or on Fan Voice, I can't remember where, with the fantasy team, and he brought up the idea of having historical races counting in pricing, and he was one of the people evangelizing for it. So if we have any challenges with the way the algebra works in the game, we should just let Andy Tales know that he really screwed us all.
No, I think I do think I listened to that episode that you guys, because Andy and I have had many an engagement on Twitter in the past, and I agree with his suggestions there. I think it needs to be a weighted average. I think it needs to be geared towards the points per million rather than the overall average of how all teams and drivers score in any given race week. So I think that's a positive change last year that they made, but there are so many more that the game could adjust for, because it's a great game. I love it, but boy, it causes me a lot of heartache as well.
So with that, we kind of, at least for me, Rob Vale, I don't know if you had any other fantasy specific questions, but for Rob, anything as you look at the game that you would want people to know, or things that we haven't asked that we're not thinking about, because I'm sure there's a lot.
I mean, we covered a lot, I think, in that segment. The thing I most love about the game is actually less about the user experience and the user interface, but actually the community. It's an exceptionally positive, engaging group of individuals across, Twitter, X, YouTube, Reddit, Discord. I don't use Instagram for fantasy, but I know there's a couple of creators that also use that. It's wonderfully engaging, and I think the community is what makes so many people come back for another bite at the apple. For me, it's kind of what has pushed me into doing more YouTube and doing Twitter and such, because it is such a pleasure to engage with so many like-minded folks who want to be better at the game, and I become better at it because of listening to other people's suggestions. I don't think I'm a foremost authority on it. I love talking about it, but it doesn't necessarily make me the best fantasy player. But there are so many people out there with great ideas, and I just love learning from people in all walks of life, regardless of whether it's fantasy or anything else. And I think the community is what makes it such an enjoyable part of playing the game.
Totally agree. We're actually really lucky. There's a lot of dirty siders who love fantasy, and I'll name a couple. Michael and Rebecca in particular are big online, but also send us notes and talk about it.
They're great, aren't they?
Really good at it. And there's some people who really lean in, and I respect the hell out of that, because I think it's a fun game too. But the community, I think you're right, really makes it what it is. I mean, Adam's great. Yeah, is great. There's so many folks. FantasyTools.com. I mean, just for me, it is a very welcoming, inclusive community, and I appreciate that, even if it's been many years since I finished 333rd in the world.
Well, you can still hang your hat on that, Brian. I haven't even got.
Oh, he does.
Vale knew I was going there.
Because I knew we can't have a fantasy discussion without that random fact coming
Since we're doing the YouTubes, Rob, can you show your shirt a little there? You leaned up a little. Look at that. Look at that.
Yes.
Formula Fantasy Hub Rob with the dirty side shirt. That's right. All right. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for chatting with us. Thank you for joining us. And man, we're just so excited for all your success. And we will always watch and appreciate and cheer for you. And just wish you the best. Anything people should know about where to find you this season? Any places you want to direct them to make sure they're following the best?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, hopefully everyone listening is already following the dirty side first and foremost. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter on F_Fantasy Hub and on YouTube Formula Fantasy Hub. So that's where I put out 99.9% of my content, but I'm also active on Discord, on Reddit. So lots of, like I said, lots of engaging pieces of content, and then, writing again for Formula One this season. So very excited to see kind of how these articles going forward are received. If there's any feedback, obviously would love to hear from members of the community, because those are the folks that make the community what it is. So yeah, if you feel free to engage with me on any socials, because I'm more than happy to have my ear talked off, or vice versa, on F1 Fantasy.
Nicely said.
Well done. Thank you again for joining us, Rob, and we'll talk to you at some point again this season, I'm sure.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Brian.
Awesome. Thanks again, Rob, for joining us. That was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to fantasy this season, and as you said, the sliver of hope.
Yes.
That maybe there is an opportunity that it isn't just algebra.
I when he said that, I was like, yeah, do you know what? You're right. With maybe a lot of unpredictability this year, at least, while the new regs bed in, maybe it isn't fantasy stock market, and people actually want to pick a team that they think are going to do well this week, rather than one that did well 3 weeks ago or badly 3 weeks ago because you're carrying a DNF all the way through with you. And I didn't say it at the time, but after we finished recording, I was thinking, yeah, and if it comes to pass of what we were talking about, are there more DNFs this year because of that? Well, then that also means that prices are going to be if they keep the same algorithm, prices are going to be tanking all over the place, or it's going to be harder to ignore assets.
Right.
I've got to stay clear of that one, and that one, because they're carrying a DNF for the next 3 races now. I'm going to have to ignore them. Well, actually, if a lot of cars suffer, then who knows? It would be great. I'm going to cling to that little slither of hope that Rob's dangled in front of us.
And it also levels the playing field a bit in terms of picking teams. So, like I said, I think this is the year you beat me.
Oh, I love that you trying to get the excuses in early. It's just awful.
Got to
right.
Make excuses early and often. That's the Chicago way.
Okay. Now, we don't have a spoiler alert sound effect, do we?
This is as close as we got. It's a warning. Spoilers incoming. Okay, so this, for the next 4 to 5 minutes, we'll do this quick. It's the Drive to Survive recap. We are going to spoil the ever-living crap out of this, so don't listen if you haven't watched or want to go in fresh. So this is your chance. Fast forward on the YouTube to the next chapter, which will down at the bottom, and on the screen there's your scroller. And then this, for anyone listening on the pod platforms that you may prefer, 4 to 5 minutes forward from here. You've been warned. Starting now. 3, 2, 1. Okay. I loved it. I loved this season. There were 8 episodes. They were about 45 minutes each. I loved it. It felt to me less of the manufactured, and I almost used the swear word, BS drama. But we also had not enough racing. That was my downside. It was like it became just a social club of drivers who also raced, as opposed to in the past, it felt like the race results mattered more. I know they talked a lot about the championship at the end, the Call Me Chucky number 8, and they got into the Drivers' Championship, and at that point racing mattered. But other than that, it felt like the Williams one was the only other one that really showed enough on-track action to merit any real conversation. That was my downer for me, but I loved it. I know you don't agree.
Yeah, I don't. And I thank Matt and Tommy for maybe helping me realize what I don't like about it. So I bowed out after 3 episodes, and I've got no desire to go back and watch the other 5. And anyone that loves it, more power to them. There's a good old phrase of each to their own, right?
Yeah.
If you love Drive to Survive, I'm not going to tell you not to like it, Brian. What I realized that Matt and Tommy were saying, has Drive to Survive reached a point now where it's struggling to find its place in terms of it's so obviously an amazing funnel for new fans coming into the sport that obviously have no clue. Like, forget the manufactured drama. I'm okay with that. The same way that I can unhook my grasp on reality for watching the F1 movie, right? It's a movie, it's not a documentary, I can watch that. Drive to Survive, we know we get the manufactured stuff. But there was still something bugging me, and I couldn't work out what it was. They said, it's a bit like any reality TV show. So when Big Brother first launched in the UK, the first season was almost like an amazing social experiment because the people forgot there were even cameras there and they didn't think anybody was going to be watching. So it was real life watching these people. Then by the time you got to about season 3, maybe even 2, people knew they were on TV, so they're acting up to the cameras all the time. And Matt and Tommy said, if you go back and watch some of the early series, even though they had the manufactured drama, we also got some real insights into the pit lane. Magnussen smashing the door. Things because they weren't really aware that this Netflix thing was going to take off. So you saw real, actual stuff. Now what you see is almost every driver knows they're being filmed. Therefore, they over the top try to do something, and then these little staged refilming of things that might have happened, like the Flavio and Gasly and Colapinto in the office. That obviously wasn't a fly on the wall. We saw it live. That was they've got together and gone, did you shout at Colapinto about something? Or even if you didn't, can we just set up this little, right, you sit there, you say that, Flavio's going to get angry, Colapinto, you need to look upset. And I think it's that. I think it's I can't surpass the staged element of it. Anyway, it's like I say, I'm going to shut up now because you love it.
I do.
And I do have some little things to pick on
the
first three episodes. So the first episode, I'll tell you who doesn't like Ollie Behrman, Drive to Survive, because they do a first episode where it's called New Kids on the Block, and I'm totally, in the same way that we can't understand how fantasy puts their rules together, that first episode wasn't about the 6 rookies, it was Kimi Antonelli and friends.
Right.
They went on a huge love-in on Kimi Antonelli. The others barely got any backstory. We saw Kimi Antonelli's mother, we watched him sitting having dinner. It was obviously sponsored by Mercedes because Toto's in there for the entire time. George Russell is narrating it for some reason, and then they go, do we talk about the rookies? Let's let them snap the board, and then we won't even see them again for the entire episode. Anyway, Go on, you love it, so you go and tell us why you love it.
I didn't see the Matt and Tommy or hear the Matt and Tommy criticism, and I will agree with that. The manufactured performative aspect. Because in number 3, the number 1 problem, episode 3, the McLaren opener, when Lando's having a meal with his friends and one of his buddies asks the most loaded question about his season and they sit and have a real conversation, that's not how people talk. That's no group of guys in the world has ever talked like that. And I watched
Dawson's Creek episode.
And I'm watching it and I go, this doesn't feel accurate. And now your explanation of Matt and Tommy's thing, I agree. So I'll add that to my list of criticisms. Not enough racing, too much manufactured. However, I liked learning more about Kimi and seeing his parents. I don't give a crap if I'm sure they didn't stage them eating meals, but they're like, cameras here, and they're like, hi. I liked every team got featured except for Haas and Aston Martin. And I didn't like Flavio, and he reinforced it for me. No one in their world has paintings of themselves in their apartment like he does. That was nuts. And that's real. He didn't do up his place for Drive to Survive. That's how Flavio thinks of himself. I like Jonathan Wheatley's approach. And sure, it was overly done and sappy, but I learned something from it. The Red Bull, fine. I liked some of the behind-the-scenes thoughts on driver changes. I enjoyed all of them. The Williams one, the duel, I thought did a great job. Episode 6, where they said they basically said what we had talked about last year, where we saw Mercedes and Ferrari and Charles and George being consistent and Kimi not and Lewis not. And the question was, who would come through and help someone win second place? I didn't really think about the fact that there are bonuses paid to the entire team based on where you finish in the constructor. So that was team, and the Vegas one was whatever. So to me, I liked it. I enjoy it. I don't take it as a documentary either. I take it as a movie, a film type approach. I just wish, I'm with you now. That part you made on the manufactured aspect does take away from it. And more racing, please. That's the point.
Yes.
You don't have to cover the races like Sky Sports would, but the reason we're all here is the racing.
Yeah, agree. And little things where, right, there's been some criticism. I didn't cover it. There's loads of things it missed out. Right, it's 8 episodes. There were 24 races. They can't get everything in. But I do think they missed out on some of the things that maybe the new fans wouldn't know about. So obviously they don't care that they're missing out for that. But the people that see it, I wanted more than a blink and you miss it. Hajar's crash in Australia, and then Anthony Hamilton kind of consoling. It was well, we've only got 10 seconds to show this because we've got to get back to the Kimi Antonelli loving. I was like, oh, come on. That was such a... I wanted to see, like, in episode 2 and maybe in episode 3, they did go into a couple of the rookies. Like, Bortoleto got a little bit more. Like, I nearly rage quit the Alpine episode because I didn't want to see Briatore anymore. But then because it kind of went towards Sauber...
That was the same one. It was like they split it, strictly business.
They split it. And once I knew we were going to see Hulk's podium, I was like, okay, I'm going to hang around for this now. I think they could have just done a better job of showing us a little bit of an arc of all of those 6 rookies. Yeah. Like, they made it sound like Antonelli was the only rookie that finished Australia because they showed the crashes for all the others, apart from Ollie Behrman. He finished as well, but he did not get mentioned in... Anyway, I don't want to keep going on about this.
Yeah, let's close it. We're closing.
I know it's not for me. I'm not going to bother watching the rest of it. I'm happy for anybody that loves it and can totally be on board that people love it, like yourself.
Yeah,
I know you do. I know you do. So that's why I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. So I'm going to shut up.
So we're going to gently leave the spoiler section into the preview by me disappointing everyone. I needed a snack. It was early in the morning. I'm watching this. I like food. And I did not feel like making an actual breakfast. So I took the tools that were available to me. I had baked lays of the salt and vinegar variety, which I don't know how that happened. Right. And I decided to make a nacho equivalent with some shredded farm-style Mexican cheese that was spicy. And I found some jalapenos and put them on there, and I microwaved it.
There's nothing wrong with any of this.
And the salt and vinegar part of it really hosed up a lot of, and they're baked lays. Like, they weren't tortilla chips. So, like, the bed was wrong. The cheese was good. The jalapenos could have been better. And then I microwaved it instead of putting it in the oven. And I sat down and I enjoyed the whole plate. It was phenomenal. It just didn't work. Like, I wouldn't serve it to a friend. It was one of those, like, well, you got to do what you got to do. When times are desperate times, desperate measures. Just don't replicate that recipe at home. Anyhow, let's talk about something that's better than that.
Okay, should we preview the Australian Grand Prix?
Please.
Okay, so it's all going to start next week. We will be in race week. We kind of always, for any new listeners, we always like to do a little bit of a preview of kind of some history of the track, which may or may not have been copied and pasted from the past 4 years that we've done this and reused every single time. Stick with it. So, yes, Australian Grand Prix been held since 1928, but it had loads of non-championship races, obviously, prior to 1950, which we've now covered, and we all know what those are.
Check that episode if you like.
Yep. It's bounced around a few places, and it's settled in... bounced around for ages until it settled in Adelaide, and then from 1996, Albert Park has hosted the Australian Grand Prix, where it's been ever since. We will go round this track 58 times, 3.28 miles. 40% of the winners have started from pole, and 88% have come from the top 4. So
it's not terrible, actually. 40% from pole. There's tracks where it's in the 60s and 70s, and even higher. So I'm actually optimistic.
And here's a little new thing that we've never done before. The F1 have announced where the straight mode and overtake detection points will be for the season. So we just know that we tell you how many DRS zones there's going to be. I'm not even sure I'm going to actually read all of this out. I think we'll probably just... we've got 5 straight mode zones. So as a reminder, straight mode is when the active aero can pop open, and we can have those. You're going to have the overtake mode, which is just the one, which is essentially the equivalent of the DRS zone, but you'll have boost available where you can use it all the way around. So I guess the idea will be that if someone's up behind you and they're about to use overtake mode, you'll just use boost to try and defend, and we'll see how all these shenanigans work out. But yeah, 5 different places where we'll see flippy wings or whatever type of wings, drop wings, lift wings, flippy Ferrari wings, but we'll see that 5 times. Yeah, times. Last year, as we just alluded to in the Drive to Survive flashback, it rained. It rained a lot. It rained a lot.
I'm praying it doesn't. Let the drivers figure out the cars. We don't need to enter another variable just yet, is my opinion. And by the way, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
The overtake part, it's a detection point, right? It's not where you can use it. It's turn 14. Then if you're within a second, you get it for the whole lap until you drain your battery, which, if you're in an Aston Martin, will be turn 15.
5 meters later.
The Energizer Bunny is just sitting there.
Yeah, exactly. So last year we had Isaac crash on the formation lap, and obviously he had a big redemption arc because he finishes the season strong. We had a McLaren 1-2 that was on the cards until Piastri had a little wobble and then went and stuck it on the grass and spent 6 years trying to put it in reverse so he could reverse his way.
I forgot he had to reverse off the grass. That's not a spoiler for Drive to Survive, but when they showed it in Drive to Survive, I'm like, I forgot that happened.
Yeah. So Lando held off Max. Max was chasing him. He had DRS for the last, felt like forever to try to chase him down, but Lando held him off and won the first Australian Grand Prix for McLaren since Jenson Button did it in 2012. He also led the Drivers' Championship for the first time in his career, and to make it a hat-trick of little statoids. By becoming a leader of the Drivers' Championship, he broke Max's record of leading it since the Spanish GP in 2022.
Oof. I like the race in Australia. Before we cover the history of classifications over time, I do enjoy Albert Park. It's high speed. I feel there's enough overtakes and overtake opportunities. There's also enough that can go wrong, like some of the turns in the middle of the track. There's gravel on the side. We've seen George have a problem there. We saw Alex have a problem there. And so I enjoy the race from down under. I'm looking forward to this one. It's a great way to start. And not just the tradition of it being start, but it's usually being a start of the season. It's a good race usually.
Yeah, agree. And I agree with you that I'd like it to stay dry for this one, just so we can try to work out how these cars actually perform. Because if it's wet, we're going to have no idea going off to China then. So, in terms of the history, this is for the Australian GP, not just Albert Park. Michael Schumacher leads the way with 4 wins. There's nobody in the current gang that have even got 3, because names you'd recognise: Jenson Button, Sebastian Vettel. Who else have we got in there? Gerhard Berger. You've got to get... No, he's got 2. You come down to the 2 list. You've got Berger, you've got Senna, you've got Damon Hill, David Coulthard, Kimi Raikkonen, Lewis Hamilton, and that's it. I was like, what? Max Verstappen hasn't got multiple wins here, which I just find staggering considering how, the last few years with his four titles or whatever, it's like, really? Max hasn't got multiple wins here? But no. Wow. So, Ferrari lead the way with 14 wins, going to make it 15 next week. We'll be talking about a 15th Ferrari win.
We might, although aren't 3 of those non-championship?
Yeah, but now that we know what non-championship are, we lump them all in now. I don't need to do the mental gymnastics anymore.
Got it.
McLaren with 13, Williams with 6. So, yeah, and Red Bull with 2. 2011 and 2023. So I guess that's Vettel and Max.
Max and Seb, yeah.
Yeah. So, right, this is the bit we haven't prepared for because we haven't discussed it. We're going to do the casino games again this year.
Let's do it.
Okay, so for new listeners, we have had a Rob versus Brian competition that we've run, and we've had different ways of scoring it. We normally make a prediction of the constructor's title, which we need to get in before this week. We'll have to do one, Brian. We'll do midweek previews of podium predictions that we'll put out as a little video to... We do pre-practice, so without any knowledge whatsoever, we'll do a podium prediction, which we score. We score as to who gets the closest.
I'm already nervous for what I'm going to do Wednesday night. First of all, I'll be on the road. Second of all, neither of us know a thing about these regs in the cars. So going into the first race, trying to make a podium prediction, I mean... The one thing I do know is my Lance Stroll championship is off the table, so I'm taking that off. There's no Lance Stroll factoring into my pre-practice podium predictions.
So we have those 2 things. So we have the long burner, which is the overall season prediction. We have the podium predictions each race. And then what we also added in, which got a lot of good feedback, was our casino games, and we're going to skinny it down to 2 this year, just to make it a little bit easier. And they're the 2 that people seem to be able to understand and enjoy the most. We have a roulette game and we have a blackjack game. So the roulette, Brian will spin our very expensive roulette table in a minute. And wherever that finishes, it gives us a position of, we've got to go 1 to 22 now. Oh, this only spins 1 to 20 at the moment, doesn't it? Okay, we'll get it fixed for next week. Right now it will do 1 to 20. I forgot there's 2 more cars on the grid.
I did too.
So anyway,
I'm sitting here staring at a 1 to 20 wheel.
It will give us a number. Whatever number it gives us, we have to predict which driver will finish in that position on the day. And then we'll both pick 2 drivers for our blackjack, where just like the game of blackjack, you have to hit 21. We take the points scored by our 2 drivers, add them together, and see who gets closest to 21 without going bust. That's how it'll work. It'll go all season. We sum it all together and work out who's the champion. And by the way, I'm the reigning champion.
Yeah, there were some scoring oddities. I don't want to talk too much about it. Stop the count. All right, here comes the wheel. 1 to 20. I should have thought about that in advance.
So should I. Just thought about it now.
Oh my God. So, for anyone who listened last season, we always got like 14 and higher. Always, always, always. And we were so excited when we got something in single digits. Well, first race of the season, it gives us 2. So this would have been so great last year. You could have just picked a McLaren and you would have had a good chance. Now, no idea.
And I'm the eternal gentleman and you're the challenger.
Thanks.
So I will say, after you, sir.
Yeah, you give me the one that's totally unknown and unpredictable with no history to go on. All right, who's going to finish second? Second. George Russell.
I was going to pick George.
I can't tell if
you.
it's going to be Max or Charles or who finishing first, but and I'm giving away the people I'm pulling the pool from. Lando, I don't know.
Yeah,
Oscar,
I don't know either.
I
So
got
I'm
George.
gonna have way too much hopium in Ferrari's performance and say that Charles is gonna win it, and then that means Max is gonna follow up like he did last year and come in second.
All right.
Okay, so now it's me first for the blackjack. Oh my gosh. Last year you just stayed away from the McLarens because you didn't want to get both of those two and get a 1-2 and go bust. This year I got nothing, so I think I'm going to go Johnny Conservative and just go for a midfielder to hope for a low score, and then you're going to take a big constructor and go bust. So I'm going to go for Ollie and Gasman.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I know. I'm really just... I'm too worried about picking the race winner and getting 25 points and going bust.
Oh, fascinating.
I shouldn't have given away my tactic.
It is a good strategy. And you picked, I could go SD and someone else. I am also nervous about getting the race winner and going bust because there are 4 teams and I don't, any one of them could really win.
I know,
and you don't know.
I know.
But here's the part. Here's the drivers I don't think will win from those 4 is Isaac and Kimi. I'm not picking them. I'm just announcing they're in my
finger not off the
selection
piece yet. Okay.
So I'm going to use Isaac. I'm putting him
Okay.
on here, not just because he waved to us from the 12th grid box in Canada.
Isaac and...
Oh boy. Man, I wish you hadn't taken Pierre. Esty.
Okay. There we go. Locked and loaded. Isaac and Ocon versus Ollie and Gasman.
And for everybody listening at home, I hope you played along. Like, what are your teams? What are your 2 picks for blackjack? Who do you think's finishing second? Always play along and let us know if you nail it.
Yeah.
Actually, let us know if you don't. Tell Rob if you don't. Tell me if you do.
Put your predictions in the comments, and we'll give shout-outs to the people that maybe didn't nail it the most. So if anyone hits 21, you can get a shout-out. There you go.
There you
go. Okay, so this time next week, well, not this time next week, but next week, we will be doing a race review, Brian.
Can't wait. I'm so excited.
Wait.
10 o'clock. It's a great time, too.
11 o'clock for me, but that's still okay.
Yeah, still all right.
Still be in bed by 1 a.m. and sleep in.
There you go. Oh, Rob, not you. Fantasy Rob, thank you for joining us. It was a great time chatting. Rob, Vale, you. Always enjoy doing this. I'm so excited the season starts. I'm with you. I'm buzzing with excitement and cannot wait to be back in 1 week's time recapping the Australian Grand Prix. Everyone, thanks so much for listening. We'll talk soon. Once I find the button for the outro.
We only had 1 to 20.